So before we begin this interview, why don't you give an update on the Halloween special you're doing, Street? The Halloween special is going to take a little more time because we need to get a lot more sound editing done. Alright, let's start from the beginning. What drove you to making movies? Well, you know, the obvious answer is usually starts with the first time I saw this, the first time I saw that. Obviously for me there's a specific movie, but I think on a more general level I've always enjoyed telling stories with images. It's a lot easier to communicate my emotions with visuals than the talking or even writing sometimes. I think that is just the essential source of it. When did you first learn to draw, Street? I first learned to draw when I was around 10, and it was when my mother took me to art school and, went through the basic proportions training and all, but the real starting point of that was that you just like to doodle and make images that incite an emotion. Do you want to speak a little on this comic book you're working on? Yeah, my comic is something I'm hoping to get a good deal of it done by next year, which is the thing that we're going to constantly refer back and forth to, Nolan, in our show. Going to serve as a background MacGuffin. It's really about a lot of my anxieties about the modern world and my own crazy goals of making something to replace the smartphone as the most used communication device. You know me so well. Well, that's the idea of the interview, isn't it? To get to know you better. So, what led you to coming up with this show and these premise of talking to cartoons? It's sort of a practice run for, the comic. This story that I've been working on over the years. You're all full of secrets, aren't you? Magicians have their codes, right? True, but what act are we in? You've shown your trick. We should be around the turn, so I think at this point people are just waiting on the prestige. The prestige is me finally finding a steady job so we can support the rest of this channel, however far it goes. As you know, things have not been going well on that front. Well, what is the general idea of drawing these spirit animal creatures that you talk with? Is it something that you were influenced by, say, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or maybe even the early Disney live-action cartoon stuff? I'm interested in what motivates this type of special effect. I'm more influenced by anime, and I don't know, they're kind of stand-ins for I don't want to say it. What don't you want to say, Street? What don't you want to say? Is it a touchy topic? It is with you. You tend to go for that stuff, I imagine. You mean CGI? You kind of fancy the idea of one day using CGI instead of your 2D animations to portray these creatures into the reality of your world. I think I use budget level as a reflection of where I am in life. It's part of the story of where I am, and maybe one day if I get access to more resources I might use them. Personally, I think there is a rather enduring quality to the way you use 2D animation, and there's a very roughness to it. You can kind of see the mistakes, and I don't know if that's intentional, but you can kind of see the craftsmanship, the handwork that you put into these. And I think that could get lost when you use CGI. What do you think, Street? Yeah, I suppose. I've been letting a lot of how I feel about my work lately be dictated by, the exposure that we have been getting. And maybe I don't know how to get it out there in the modern sense or way. So, that's also a continuing struggle of our business. Don't worry about that, Street. That's why we're doing this interview. Now, I want to ask you next, what is your overall goal as a filmmaker at this point in your life? Avoid processed foods. Well, that's why you have to drink more tea. Yeah. My overall goal is trying to do something different, but make something that, is a little more intellectually and emotionally stimulating, as opposed to zombifying. What do you mean by zombifying? It's ironic that one of your plots cover a villain using an algorithm to destroy the world, and I don't know if that was an intentional tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, but I think there is a very deliberate incentive to make things that are very much against your whole mindset about making the best thing possible all the time, or even trying. Yes, we should always try to make the best thing possible, but right now you're running a business and you have to be efficient and not treat this so much like a show, because you don't really have the resources to reach that consistent level of production. But I think the more we do this, we'll figure out what you are efficient at. Yeah, it's definitely the drawing stuff that I got down, and the animating, all that is cool, and I look forward to showing off more of what we got in store. But I think story-wise, it's really hard to translate into this online landscape. Why don't you explain to me a little about the character dynamics of your main characters? Street and his partner Nolan, they're spirit cartoonists, and they are investigators of paranormal activity in a way, but a little more active. They have powers to actually confront and summon the demons and spirits that are causing trouble. So they do a little more than hunt the spirits, and so I'd say it's a bit of a crime-solving, mystery-solving adventure. Personally speaking, it's a creative challenge. You've got a lot more work that you can put into figuring out how to push this technology to the best that it can, before you eventually work up the resources to use a more advanced camera. Yeah, I suppose so. The 65mm telescopic lens I attach onto it doesn't really do too much because it's a telescopic lens. It's in the word street, telescope, as in, like a telescope. So you'd point it at something really far away in order to magnify it. It wouldn't work as well if you were just using it for mediums and close-ups. Did you run into that problem in your first episode or something? Yeah, we did. Found that out early on. But I think we're, from here on out, doing away with the episodes concept. We're just gonna try it, because really that all that does is just add a little more pressure to uploading. What can we expect for the upcoming weeks, Street, leading up to the Halloween video? I don't know. I guess we'll just try and do some more things and do something new and different than what we have been doing. You know what they say, it's like insanity's doing the same thing again, expecting different results. So I guess we'll just have to do something different. That's the spirit, lad. We've got to push outside of our comfort zone. Does this wrap up the interview today, or do you want to ask a few more questions? Because I am not sure I shot enough footage or even created enough animation frames for you to... Well, that's another thing that you really have to start to improve and, really get to work on, right? Is to practice speaking in camera. This is not a complete form of performance. And I know that you're only doing it this way now because you're limited to spaces that you can't exactly speak up at without creating a public disturbance. But you should probably find spaces where you can speak and then gradually practice. Because every actor has to deal with that sort of thing. There's no running from it, and running from it isn't going to make you better. Yeah, I know. Look for a new Lavalier, I suppose, and figure that out. Explore the world a little more. Of course, you've got to explore the world. You're not... Street, I want to emphasize that you aren't going to come up with anything interesting being stuck, cooped up in your bedroom all the time. That is always going to limit your worldview. If you want to create the largest scope of something, you should go as far as you can and travel more. For now, I can only go as far as however much money I have left on this bus card, Nolan. Well, that's a start, isn't it? You can get quite good results. You live in a very photogenic area currently. So you just do a little exploring and wandering, you'll soon find the locations. Right, the locations, and the liminal spaces, I believe. Is that what the theme of your video show was originally setting up to be for all the dialogue and character writing stuff? Yeah, it was. You gotta get better at that. You gotta get better at a lot of things. I'm glad we did this interview. I'm very glad you did this interview, Street. I'm very glad. So, I hope that this has helped you loosen up a little and make you less afraid of putting yourself out there a little more, because, it's not gonna go away, the work of putting yourself out there. It's not something that people are gonna do for you. You just, where you are, that's the work. I know, it's all these videos right now, they're just like trapped inside the Tesseract. Exactly, they're in a completely different plane of existing, in a higher dimension. You can't find a better archive than a fourth dimension, on a higher state of, this internet stuff. It's not meant to last, and most people think that that's where things will last, but I really think that things that are meaningful are created with real life interactions and real life people. You've just got to keep making art until you find more and more of that, that emotionally brings something to other people. Okay, thank you for testing out this new voice changer, and once again, channeling the spirit of one of my favorite filmmakers. We will soon get back to work on our new videos.
You're welcome, Street, but we do have to explain why my voice changes throughout the show from here on out.